Last week on Built ended in a really good note, though it was a very, very difficult video to make. Behind me is my wide body MGB that is now powered, well, not powered, but installed, and now it's got, there's a V8 in it now with a 5-speed transmission. Small block Ford, 5 liter, like what comes in the Mustang of the late 90s, or late 80s, early 90s. And it's mounted, it fits. Even the hole where the transmission goes lines up almost perfectly. We're gonna have to trim about an inch forward, which is surprising to me. So today we've got to do a little bit of fabrication, and if maybe you're watching this because you want to learn how to build headers, well, we're gonna give it a shot today. I have no experience building headers and no special tools, and I think that the 2 things you're gonna need is, well, 3 things, is a lot of motivation, got that, a welder, which I've got a little 140 that's a 110 welder, just like what you would have at any home shop that has a welder, and this. Let me show you what this is real quick. This is a header kit, and it kind of exploded when the UPS guy dropped it off at my house. He did apologize, but everything is here, I think. I actually haven't looked at it. This is the first time. You've got these plates, a lot of Mindrol bent tubing. So I'm hoping that this will serve, and if this video is out, then I'm hoping this will serve as kind of a how-to of sorts for you guys that have never done this before, because I've never done this before, and you can kind of see the problems you're gonna probably run into, because I'm definitely gonna run into problems. But also, I found a lot of videos on how to professionally TIG weld stainless steel headers, and that's just not where I'm at right now. And I know there's a lot of other guys out there that need some headers that probably need to be custom built, and they're just not there either. So this is for you guys that are at home, that need a set of custom headers, and need to do it on a budget with minimal tools. All this stuff was $140. It's pretty good. Let's start, I don't know if we're, I guess, measuring. We'll do voiceover. So the weird part about these headers, and the reason I'm having to build my own, is because they have to go through the fender and on the outside of the frame rails. There's just not enough room within the frame rails to house the exhausts as well. And this is something MG did when they put Rover V8s in their cars, so it's not that weird, but it makes a really, really tight spot to have to fit 4 individual pipes. On this first one, I just want to get a feel for the material, so I'm eyeballing everything, using some straight edges, using my eyes, using some tape measures sometimes, but mostly I'm just doing this kind of as I go and hoping for the best. The saw that I'm using is a cold cut saw, and it does what it sounds like it does. It cuts metal cold, and it's really, really great for straight cuts, though it's kind of hard to get these bends to work out on it sometimes. So I had to resort to the cutoff wheel in some instances, and it actually did not turn out that bad. And I decided to make the 2 outside runners first to give me something to kind of base everything around. I really wanted to build this on the bench. So I set up a jig on my jig table, and this was a great idea for weld quality, for being able to see everything that I'm doing. But for fitment, it wasn't that great. It was all eyeballed, and we ended up having some fitment issues down the road. Another rookie mistake that I made that I'm sure you've probably noticed by now is I blocked my other 2 runners. So these first 2 came straight out and then ran parallel to the mounting flange, and because of that I was going to have to do some pretty creative work to get the other 2 pipes back to the collector. With that tacked together, it was time to fit this thing into the car, and it was about this time that I realized I welded everything on upside down. So we had to cut it off and flip it over and try again. And that's how it's supposed to fit. So I decided to go ahead and weld everything up just because I had room. I could grind the welds down, I could make everything look really nice, and then I would go on to the hard part, which is going to be making these other runners. My son came to visit in the middle of all this, and it'd been a while since he'd given any of you guys a heart attack, so for the half of you that get really concerned while he's in the shop, this is for you. Don't worry, he's fine, he's tough. He saw what I was building and wanted to learn how to weld some stuff, so after finishing up this pipe, I decided I'd take a break and teach him some tricks about welding. Get ready for your second heart attack, and don't worry, the saw is not running, and I had him move. He loves to break stuff and smash things, and so I decided for our first welding project together, we would build a hammer. Now I thought I had audio here, but I forgot to turn my mic on. So if you're wondering, all he's saying this whole time is, whoa, wow, whoa. He spent time painting the hammer, and then he went back to smashing things. I stopped briefly at a coal mine and then returned to building the headers. And of course, it doesn't fit, so we had to make the hole even bigger. There we go. So we had to do some weird stuff with the fourth tube because of, well, no planning, but it does do what it's supposed to do, which is direct the exhaust out of the engine and down right next to the frame rail, which is a great spot to start our exhaust. So about halfway through building that, I started looking for other options. And I found these kits online that allow you to build headers out of pieces, basically with plastic, and then use it as mock-ups. But they're $650 or more. Some of them are like $1,500, some are like $400. And for me, that was just too expensive. So I found somebody who made some 3D models and I 3D printed them. Now I've been running these basically non-stop. I've got some still going right now for the past 2 or 3 days. I moved on to some other projects with the car, so you'll notice the engine bay looks a little different. Just let these things print. And what we're gonna do is we're gonna take these, and you can see they break apart into a bunch of different pieces. To put it in perspective, it takes me about 8.5 hours to print 9 of these. So I've been running my printer non-stop to get as many as I've got. All right, here's the plan. These are all of the straights that I've made. These are all of the 22.5-degree angles I've made, and we can build an exhaust that should fit, and we shouldn't run into any issues that we ran into last time. That's the goal. This is getting out of hand, I know, but I think this is actually gonna be a really good system. Let's try it. All right, so I had a new plan this time around. I wanted to try to make a collector that just more accurately placed all of my pipes. And so I set off in trying to design one, again, kind of by eye. I did find a few jigs that will help you do this, but I wanted to understand how this all worked in the first place. And for me, the best way for me to figure that out is just going after it. And so that's what I did. I cut these little kind of heart-shaped things. If you ever built a collector or watched someone do it, it'll look pretty familiar. These will all go together and basically make a 4-into-1 pipe. But we gotta clean them up first. With those cleaned up, we can tack them together and then cut off the collector that was provided, which is just an open mouth style collector, and it's really a pain to get sealed up. I used my new pipe to trace out an opening and then just cut that off of my newly built collector, and we ended up with a pretty cool looking 4-into-1 flange, I guess, collector that we were going to build everything off of. I took my newly built collector and welded it into the spot that I wanted it to be. This is just like 2 tacks to keep it where I want it. It smoked a little, but it was there, it was where we needed, and then I got to use my new tools. It took some time getting used to, but these things are incredible. I'll leave a link in the description below to the download if you have a 3D printer and you want to try this out. It is an insane tool. It's so helpful in getting this thing built and just planning out your header system. The clearances I was able to achieve, the shapes I was able to make is just insane. So after you get the general shapes built, it's just a matter of transferring them into the metal. And as you can see, it's really, really straightforward. All of the bends break down into 22.5-degree segments, so every 2 bends equals 45, every 4 bends equals 90, and so on and so forth, which makes sectioning out the pipe and getting all the bends correct and all the angles right very, very easy. This, to me, is the most fun part. The rest is very difficult, but this part is very fun. I got a little carried away with my bends here, but it was just too easy to plan everything out with these plastic aids, and so I decided to just go for it. Now, because of this, I actually ran out of bends, and so one of the pipes is welded with a piece of bent tubing that I found at a local auto parts store that we just made work. After I got everything kind of tacked together, I took it over to the bench and started welding it all up. I did this 2 tubes at a time, so 2 of them were welded to the flange and 2 of them were welded to the collector. It made it easier for me to line everything up, and it actually worked this way, although it wasn't actually planned. Some of my tacks broke when I tried to remove this thing from the car, and it ended up working out. Now, once all of this was welded together, it was just a matter of sealing it up and connecting the dots. We had to get everything connected together and get all of the little pinholes filled because I did not want any exhaust leaks once this thing goes on. And this is where experience and skill comes into play. I spent a ton of time welding and grinding just to get this thing to work, and if my fitment was better, it would have been way easier. It is a thing. It's not the prettiest thing in the world, but it is in fact a thing. And I think round 2 went better than round 1. This is round 2, and here is round 1. It's kind of hard to show them both. There we go. You can see I got a lot more complicated the second time around. That was thanks to my kit that I made. And my fitment was a lot better, but a major mistake I made, well, I'll say it this way. In round 1, the biggest mistake I made was not thinking about how the pipes were going to enter into the collector. And ultimately, it turned into a big mess. Along with that was just not being able to plan this fourth and final pipe. And so I ended up with these kind of pie cuts, very rough, very weird looking, 180-degree bend right there at the end. So those were a little frustrating. What I did, I think, well on these though, is make sure that all of my runners came into the flange pretty well, pretty even. And they all kind of tucked inside of there. I welded them like crazy, and I think that came out way, way cleaner and a lot better. And the flange is still clean. On here, my runners did not meet the flange as well, and so I don't know if you can see it on camera, but inside of here it's very rough. I'm gonna have to machine this flange down to get it flat so that it will seal with the gasket. So that's something I'm gonna take into consideration the next time I build a set. What I did well on the second set, I think, is creating my own collector and sending the pipes all out different directions. Because this is short, it's built kind of like a turbo manifold, where all the pipes have to kind of come in a very short matter of time, so you can't run them out next to each other like you would on a long tube setup. So creating my own collector that sent all the pipes out allowed me to weld that up really tight and clean, and then also gave me kind of this target to hit with all these pipes that was really easy, honestly, to hit. I think what I'll do next time on round 3 is create kind of the same thing on the flange. So like I had these very specific targets to hit with the round tube down here on the collector, I think I'm gonna throw some round tube in the flange as well and just have little stubs sticking out, and that will be my target to hit there. And so we'll connect that stub to this stub, and I think we'll have a much cleaner end result. Most of my time was spent trying to get these things to actually hit the flange, and it happened in a very messy fashion. Aside from where it hits the flange, the rest of it I think looks really good. I definitely see the benefit to TIG welding with this. With MIG, you don't have as much control over the material that's going in. There were some times where I just needed to heat the joint up. I didn't really need a lot of material, but I had to put it on there anyway, so it made some pretty messy welds. But again, it's TIG, it's mild steel, or it's MIG rather, and it's mild steel. It's kind of what you're gonna get. I'm gonna paint these, but I'm out of paint and I'm ready to get this video out. So this is gonna be the end for this video. In the next video, we're gonna throw these things on and get the engine running. Wish me luck. See you in the next one. There we go.
You